righty. So good morning, Taylor. Thank
Good
you
morning.
so much for joining us today. I love having you be our special guest. Thank you for taking the time out to do that. Can you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so my name's Taylor. I recently joined Keller Williams, so I think my year was in June, so I'm like very new. I'm a newbie little baby. I joined after realizing I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 5 years, and although I loved it, I was working at charter schools, and they're doing great work, but it's a very churn and burn sort of position. And I was exhausted, and I miss those students every day. But my mom, Laura Lamana, who I see just chimed in over there, is an agent. She's always told me, you should do this, you should do this. And I think that when I was like 20, it was really hard for me to see it as not just like I'm not a salesperson, I'm not a businesswoman, so I was completely against it. And as I got older, I got to see how much it was people oriented and how much it's education. It's education just of a different group of people. And so that's how I got here. And I am still completely learning every single day. I mean, I'm brand new still in this world. When I hear someone's been in it since 1997, I'm like, oh God, I got a lot to learn, but I'm enjoying the learning experience. And I really have loved Keller Williams. Everyone has been so welcoming and doesn't judge me when I need help. It's just like wonderful.
Okay, so Keller Williams, so we're the first place and only place you've been, so it's
Yeah,
not like you've been anywhere else. So,
exactly.
so it was kind of a natural thing for you to join us, or your mother would have had a fit, I think,
I
right? Had
think
you
so.
gone somewhere else? Look at her, she's giving you the hairy eyeball. So, talk to me about your role. Did you start as an admin for mom?
Yep,
Um,
exactly.
okay.
So I started as an admin, I want to say January of 2 years ago now, just trying to help her handle the paperwork side of things. And it was kind of me also testing the waters to see if I would like this sort of thing. Because I was still, communicating with her clients and making sure they were on top of things too. And I was doing that while I was working full time at a nonprofit as an operations manager. And so I started as an admin. I'm still doing her admin work, but I'm also a buyer's agent. So we are kind of like taking it year by year. I don't know if I'll always do the admin stuff. I'm sure she doesn't miss it at all. So I'll continue to do it for her until I'm too busy to kind of do that myself. But I started as an admin, which I think helped me kind of understand the back end of it all. And I just had to focus on the front end of things, the client interactions and lead generation, stuff like that.
Sure. So let's talk about training and stuff. Did mom train you? What were there classes that you took at KW? What did you find helpful to get you going into a buyer's agent role?
So my mom trained me on the paperwork for sure, but then once I was licensed, I took advantage of a ton of those in-person classes. I even went to ones that weren't buyer's agent oriented. I went to the listing boot camp just to understand the whole transaction. Because yes, I'm a buyer's agent, but I'm working with seller's agents all the time, and I need to understand their end of things too. So I took every class that I could. I unfortunately was working full time when Bold 2.0 came out, but I just recently did the Bold Pivot class, which really shifted how I think about things. And I think just being vulnerable, and when I was working with an experienced agent, like leaning on them a little bit and saying like, what would you do? Or if I didn't know, I know someone in the office does. So just, using our network of people, because like I said, everyone at Keller Williams has been happy to share their knowledge and their connections. And that has really been my safe space, because like, it's okay that I don't know yet.
Right. So what do you think helps you to cap? So you capped within your first official year, correct?
Yes, I did.
That's awesome.
Thank
So
you.
what are some of the things you think that you can attribute to that success?
So my first few clients were people that I knew from past jobs. And I think that I wanted to put all of my energy on just like loving them so like hard, like wrapping myself all around them and letting them know I was going to take care of them the whole way. And that has just, cause I thought like referrals would come in like 10 years, but I've already gotten so much business from my first few people. And I think that that has been my biggest source of leads so far in business. So yeah, I use social media and things, but it's been my sphere of influence. And my mom will tell you, like, I didn't think I had a sphere of influence. I'm like, who cares that I'm in business now? You know, I'm 27. But so many people from past areas of my life, whether it was a volunteer that I worked with or a teacher I used to work with, have already come back and chosen to work with me. And that has been wonderful to get to know them in a different capacity.
Okay. So how did you go about I don't know, bridging that gap, if you will, like going from, you know me as a volunteer or whatever, and now I'm a real estate salesperson. What was that like? How did you have to change the conversation and get them to not see, it's kind of like, you know, when we have kids, we always see them as little people, little girls, and then they become young adults. And then eventually you have to trust that they've developed into this new role. Did you notice anything like that with real estate?
A couple of my clients for sure were kind of like, how do I know, like, how do I know you know this? I know you're new. And I would just reassure them, like, if I don't know it, I'm on a team, you know, my business partner, my mom can also help with this. And I think just really educating them and addressing if they felt skeptical about anything, like just calling it out and saying, like, I understand why you might be hesitant to trust me, or you might want to go with a more experienced agent, but kind of sometimes spinning it and saying, you know, I'm not a $10 million agent, so I have the time to completely spend with you and hold your hand through all of this. And that's not to say that they won't, but I have more energy to pour into that area of my business.
That's a great point.
Taylor, how did you, I want to interject, how did you even let them know? Like, what was the telling them, I've made this change to real estate, and then how did you nurture that from that point? Because getting those first clients is the hardest part,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I had to get over myself. Like, I was in my own way of not wanting to reach out to people that I hadn't spoken to in 1 year, 5 years, like whatever it was, because I kind of felt like I didn't want to just pop in because I wanted something from them, and I had to get past that. And I would either text them if I had their number, or just Facebook message them, or even just starting to interact with more people on Facebook. Like, then they start showing up in your feed, like all of those algorithms that matter, you know. And I've gotten just random people that add me on Facebook, and they feel like, oh, they like what they see. Let's grab coffee and see if I'm a good fit. So I think some of it was very direct. Some of it was picking up the phone or texting. Others was just seeing it and seeing that I had switched into a different career. And a lot of times it starts with a casual conversation, like, hey, do you know where should I go to get a mortgage? And the next thing I know, they have a mortgage and they're wondering if they can work with me. So I think that it's just staying top of mind. I haven't done any direct mailers or anything like that. It's been on my phone or social media.
Okay. So have you put command to good use with regards to your database and reaching out, or has it been solely just been, you know, through Facebook and so on and so forth?
I've used command to do like not the email nurtures, but like I have a birthday one, I have a home anniversary one, and it just takes, I don't have to think about it. I log in one day and it says, hey, Lindsay's home anniversary is next week. Like, remember to send a card. So I use it for that. I know that it has so much more. And I did the 66-day challenge at first. And then I think my energy shifted from, I want to know everything technology, to I need business. So I've done a couple of Facebook ads for our team, but I haven't used any of like the campaigns that are auto emailers or anything. But I definitely should.
Yeah. No, it's great that you're using the birthdays and the home anniversaries. I think that's
Yeah.
important. It does keep you top of mind.
Mhm.
And with regards to the home anniversary, it shows that you're remembering them, whether or not they think that you're doing it on your own or you
Right.
get a reminder. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to start saying some stuff from the chat box, Mary?
Oh, sure. I'm just always curious, like how do you spend your day? Like what's an average, day in the life, look like for you from a real estate standpoint?
Yeah. So at first, I was full time at a different job until until last September. And then I started nannying about 30 hours a week. So I was completely scared to like dive in, lose my salary, go to commission. I was very scared of that. And I realized quickly that although it's nice to have like this cash coming in from nannying, like I had to put real estate second.
Mm-hmm.
I had to put all of my showings, all of my phone calls when I wasn't with these two wonderful kids. So once that went away, my schedule was much more like routine. The only thing though that I would say is routine is I wake up every day between 6 and 6:30, have coffee, whatever. I get on the computer and I'm doing emails, lead gen, whatever, until about 11. That's the only thing that's very consistent. And then if I have showings, great. If I'm doing paperwork after that, I kind of just prioritize. So like I might not be as regimented as someone that doesn't have as much flexibility, but I also think I got into real estate wanting the flexibility of the non-traditional 9 to 5 or teaching role, so that's how I definitely spend time lead generating every morning or touching my sphere every morning, followed by some sort of paperwork and then eventually showings or whatever else, phone calls.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like which is great because it sounds like you're building your business the right way from the beginning, right? Like you're prioritizing.
So, Mary.
Well, it seems like you are. I mean, right? They say if you do nothing else, do lead gen, and you're kind of prioritizing that, right?
Well, and you're time blocking, which is what everybody here should be doing. Like you should be lead genning. I think that they said, 9 to 11 every day or whatever. And it's great that you're up at 6 or 6:30 and you're on the computer. So you're putting a good chunk of hours into your business without you really even knowing it. You're having coffee, you're answering emails and stuff, and that's fantastic.
And I'm in my pajamas. Like it's fantastic.
That if anybody on here can take anything away from this call, that's what you should take away, is the fact that Taylor is very regimented with doing lead gen, because that's what helps you to bring business. But sorry. So
no, even if it's like, because I used to view lead gen as very like, I need to contact 20 people. And I know that's what Bolt says. And I did that for a while, but like, I still do that. But at the same time, sometimes I view it as like, I need to do a social media post today. And, make sure that people are like remembering me. And, if it gets interactions, even if one person likes it, and then like 2 weeks later, they message me about home buying, like it did the job, so it can look very different.
And speaking of that, how would you say, and it's not an exact science, but and you're young in the scheme of real estate, like a young person. And so with how you communicate with your peers, like what do you think between calls, Facebook messages, and texts, like percentage wise, where do you choose to spend your time? How do people your age want to be communicated with?
They only want me to call them if it's negotiations or urgent. And sometimes that's frustrating to me because I can sometimes be texting and understand that they're not exactly following along. Mm-hmm. And sometimes then I'll just pick up the phone in the middle of a text call.
And I mean more in the, like when you're doing your lead gen, is your lead gen mostly texts or Facebook or calls, or like percentage wise there?
I would say it's probably 60% Facebook, 30% text, and 10% calls.
Okay.
Yeah. So Facebook is easy to me because it feels like I'm not necessarily like working, but it is. It's
right.
It's important. And even going through my friends list and being like, do I actually know all these people? Like, who can I reach out to? Because like I said, Facebook shows you who you interact with. So if you see the same 20 people every day, it's because that's who you like and chat with most. So kind of branching out and just messaging people and saying, hey, I don't know if you've already bought or if you're thinking about it, but if you know anyone, I want you to know I'm working in the Rochester area now, and I'd be happy to have a casual conversation with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I have kind of a strange series of questions here for you. I know your mom posted in the chat that she wants to make sure everybody knows as a new agent that she's not fed you leads and work, you know, that she wanted you to have confidence that you can do it without a rainmaker. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is a two-part question.
Okay.
What do you think, God, so much thinking at 9 something in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you think is one of the most important things that mom taught you with regards to real estate, okay, like as a new person? Mm-hmm. What do you think that she taught you? And then going the other way, what are some things that you perhaps taught mom, somebody who's a seasoned agent and you being brand new? I want people to understand that we can all be learning from each other, you know what I mean, in this business. So what are some good nuggets you think that you guys have fed each other both ways?
My mom, I think what she helped me get over most is like the fear of not having a commission and like not looking at work as your next commission, but like just fostering a relationship. Her clients love her, and like watching that happen, I'm like, I want that for myself. I want my clients to feel that way about me and know that they're well taken care of. So putting like my relationships with them before anything else, and everything else will follow how it's supposed to. I think that is something that she really helped me with. Okay. I think what I've helped her with is more of the systems. So she's an agent on the fly, and she's rocked it that way for how many years?
She's like covering her face.
It works for her, but like when I'm trying to help her out and I'm like, where is this document? When did you do this? Like, I just need to know all of that. And I've just had to create that for myself and take it over. And I think that what's wonderful about that is it's allowing us to do more business than we did last year. And if we ever need to add an admin, that system's a little more sound for me to pass on to that person, and they can tweak it however they need to, but the bones are there. And I think that that's just going to help us as a team. I'm not saying she's disorganized. I'm just saying she's a little on the fly. Love you, Mom.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Do you guys have a long range plan, like, you know, building this team together, or do you think that you'll eventually go solo, or haven't you even gotten that far yet?
I think that we don't have anything concrete. I think that really part of my mom's reasoning is like, she's not going to do this forever. And to spend all this time generating this business and this pool of people, and then she retires or scales back. And I think it's part of like, who's she going to pass this on to? So I don't know when that'll be, but I think that right now the team dynamic is working really well. Her, you know, handling listings, me handling buyers. I think that is a great, I guess, division of labor, but I don't know what the long-term thing is. I think the next big thing is if the admin work starts to hinder business development and lead generation, because on my end, because if that happens, then I have to pass part of those responsibilities on to somebody else, but we're not quite there yet.
Right. Well, and what a testament to the business that she wants you to follow in her footsteps, that she thinks this is a good choice for you, right?
How sweet.
I mean, if you hate your job, you're not going to be like, join me, like, do my job, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I've fallen in love with it. I mean, I didn't realize what it was. I feel like I saw her doing it my whole life, but I just really thought it was like a business job, a salesman, like I said. And yeah, of course, we're selling real estate, but it doesn't feel like that day to day, at least to me.
Right. We have something in here. I started in this business exactly the way you have. Oh, my father was a real estate agent for 40 years. I didn't know that, Lynn. It's kind of
That's
cool.
inspiring, Leonard. I have a long road ahead of me then.
Well, and how great starting so young. I think so many times like, oh, I wish I'd started in my 20s, you know, just you gain so much traction, you know, when you're young without the kids to like, you know, you can get all this kind of like built up and it's really great. That's awesome. Shows that family can live and work and love.
I was a little bit older.
So, and how did COVID affect you guys? Did you make any big sweeping changes on how you ran your business, or are you guys back to doing open houses, or where are you with all of that?
We haven't done an open since COVID. All of my buyer consultations still have been over the phone or Zoom. I know that listing appointments she's been going on in person. Those are more necessary to go in person, I think. And other than that, during like the real like shutdown, we still sold houses. It was the typical, 24 hours for them to see it in person sort of thing. And I was shocked that people were willing to do that. But I think the more like we leaned into it, the more that buyers and sellers leaned into it. Like, it's okay to buy like this. If the market's not going anywhere, we're going to make this happen for you. And then they're kind of like, okay, if they believe it can happen, we're going to trust them and go all in. But since, showings and stuff are back in action, even though sometimes you got to fight to get a showing in time for the negotiations, which is thrilling. But so it slowed down for sure. I don't want to act like we were on top of the world, but business was still definitely there. I don't want to say any incorrect numbers, but somewhere between March and May, I think we sold 5 to 10 houses. And that was like during the
hate of it.
Yeah.
Well, I love what you said about you kind of, once you were confident in what you guys were doing and what you educated them, and then they felt comfortable because they knew you were comfortable.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget that we drive that, right? Like, that's our job.
Exactly. Well, and I got that energy from like other leaders within Keller Williams sharing what they were doing. And I'm like, if they can do this, I can do this, and this will work for my buyers and sellers. And so it was really a great time to see our offices come together and kind of make the best of the worst and figure out a way to get through it.
Well, and I think what's important is that, you said like once people saw that you were confident that they were willing to follow suit. What I've been saying all right along is like, listen, guys, it's really understandable because if you think about it, people still need to buy and sell. And and yes, while it might have taken away the, so I want to move from my starter home to my next house in life, like the moving up people. There's still people that were graduating from college or being job relocated, or maybe there was a death in the family or a divorce or something like that. So the housing issue is always going to be there. It's just a matter of how we shape it and how we change it. And that's really important. And I'm glad that you tuned in like you did during that time, because that was the message that, we as leadership wanted to try to get across, was like, listen, guys, this still needs to happen. We just have to figure out how to do this safely. So kudos to you for, leaning in and making this work. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So how many transactions did you do last year, and what's your goal for this coming year? Do you know, or just give a rough guess?
I want to say in my first year, it was like 14 houses, 14 clients maybe. And then this year I'm looking to double that. So between 25 and 30.
Awesome.
And I'm hoping it's possible because I was working full time for half of that for a full year, and then I was nannying part-time. So I really only had a full-time, like real estate only position for like the last 3 to 4 months of my first year.
Okay. So when is your anniversary date?
June 1st.
June 1st. Okay.
So I just lost my cat.
When do you hope to cap this year? What if you could say 4 months, 6 months, what's your goal?
I would say 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty dang awesome. Your mom's saying 4, girl.
5 months.
She's like,
5.
I appreciate the love.
Process for nurturing your past clients, like after the closing, what do you do for them?
I always give, I don't have a standard closing gift. I love the idea of a standard closing gift because I think it takes a little bit of like, it sounds bad, but like the thought out of it. It's like a more routine.
Sure.
But right now I have the energy to like, I find out like, oh, this guy loves Tito's vodka. This girl's favorite animal is elephants. Like I can get more personalized things. And I really enjoy doing that part. I don't think I'll be able to do it forever because eventually I'm not going to be able to, you know, go into Home Goods and spend 30 minutes finding cute things for people. But then other than that, we do pop buys. We haven't since COVID just because it's kind of strange to show up at someone's store when you're not really supposed to be. But things like that. I send birthday cards, the home anniversary cards, you know, just texts now and then. I also think that one of our big goals this year was to do a large client appreciation event, and we're still trying to figure out how to do that with COVID. We're thinking maybe like a food truck or something where people can kind of come and grab stuff and we still get to like chat real quick and keep a distance. So I think it's important to do those things and give back to them and let them know that we're not just there for that transaction. We want to have a lifelong relationship with them.
Absolutely. Do you try to keep a certain price point when you guys are thinking about gifts and whatnot? I mean, I think that one of the things that realtors can get away from them is their budgets, right? Like we don't know how much we should spend. We're not systematic in the way that we do these things. So I wasn't sure if you had.
Sometimes I feel like for me, I'm not going to speak for my mom because she does different gifts. But I try to be between 40 and 50. And I really try to do that. Like I haven't gone into the realm of, well, what if they purchase at like X amount, they purchase like a larger house. Do they get a larger closing gift? I haven't gotten into that game. I kind of try to keep it even keel, but, I know that there's some agents that kind of stagger the gifts based on the purchase price point, but, I would say $50 per client.
Okay. And do you have a referral reward program? Like you're so new, so some of this we just might not have gotten to yet, but like where if someone sends you a referral, do you have a plan in place for what you're going to do for that referral? Or
I don't, but I'll develop one now, Mary.
I mean, yeah.
No, I should, because like some of them, like it's great to say thank you. And I don't know if I have reciprocated how great it makes me feel. Like when I find out that someone sent me someone, it is like, it's the best feeling in the world. I didn't realize how good it would feel.
Right.
And I should reciprocate that to the person that referred them.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, there's so many ways to nurture, and I'm always curious how I've started doing this little thank you for your support. It's a Home Depot card.
Oh, cute.
So, right?
How did you get your logo on there?
I don't know. Home Depot does it. They have like a program where you can do it.
That's so cool.
I don't know. I'm trying it. It's $25 if they send me a referral,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So just always curious what other people are doing and what they're up to.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions out there for Taylor?
Crickets, people. Ivan usually has something. Come on, Ivan, pipe in.
I think the presentation has actually been quite helpful. You know, being an experienced agent who's coming back in as a newbie, I'm listening and taking notes and whatnot. I mean, for me, it's not so much a question as much as it is confirmation that lead gen is the thing. And of course, we have this fancy term called time blocking. Yeah, you got to time block. I mean, you know, for me, I'm time blocked in there every morning till 11. So this is what I'm doing. I just met with a buyer early this morning. Yeah, a buyer. And I need to get him pre-qual. He's been working for, you know, he's got a good work history and whatnot. So I'm just making the calls, talking to people. It was helpful to know that you, Taylor, talk to people through Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
Who answers their phone anymore? I mean, nobody answers their phone. Even the fellow that I was talking to this morning, he says to me, I never answer my phone if I don't know who's calling. And so I can't give him the name of my bank person because he's not going to answer the phone when he gets the call.
Yeah. And I think Facebook's like a wonderful tool. Like I don't have everyone's phone number, but I can shoot them a message and either ask for their phone number or talk to them that way. But yeah, I mean, I answer the phone now if I don't know the number, but before I was an agent, I would have thought it was spam, like especially with these 585 spam calls that come through now, you can't really always identify them.
Yep. All the time. So
So
thank you.
I started using Twilio through Command, and one of the things that I had to think about was, so the number that you get through Twilio is a 512 area code out of Austin, Texas. And so I was toying with the fact, because my cell phone number is a 610 area code. And when I would text people, I really didn't get great responses until they really knew who I was. So with Twilio, I was like, do I pay for a local 585 number? I think it's like $1 a month or whatever. And I decided not to. And can you believe I get a great response through my 512 area code through Twilio. I mean, it's amazing. But like you, Taylor, it was like, okay, so if I pay the $1 a month, which isn't, going to break the bank, thinking that I had now I have a 585 area code, that's going to do me so much better. And, it turns out if they don't know me, they might think I'm spamming them anyway. So yeah. It's just, yeah.
Can I say something about that, Kim? It's funny because when you contacted Taylor about doing this morning, she sent me a snapshot of it, and I said, that's not Kim's number. I go, I think somebody's like spamming you.
Oh.
I go, I don't think that's, remember Taylor?
Yeah, and I was like,
so then Taylor like Googled you, and she's like, no, that's her. I was like, yeah, so that does make a difference. I believe that.
Yeah. So it's awesome. The tools we have are great.
Yeah, they are.
Anybody else have anything for Taylor this morning?
Well, I was going to ask you, Taylor, when you're doing your lead gens, how much of it is just reaching out to connect and how much of it is actually asking for business?
Most
and saying,
of it.
do you know of anybody?
I always, not always, I would say 75% of the time I am just reaching out to connect. And then later, if I reach out again, it's not out of the blue for me to just say, hey, like, do you know anyone thinking of selling or buying? I think that could be a waste of my time. I think it's another thing that I need to like get over, but I have this big stigma around like being too salesy, and I kind of sometimes want to ease in. I've had agents at KW say like, no, just dive in, do it. Like, it's okay. And I think I'll get there, but it feels more natural to me to nurture it through just genuine contact first at this point.
And I think there's no right answer. I mean, I've talked to one of the top 5 agents in the town, and they say they never ask for business. They're just they would never say, do you have anybody like that? To them feels but they've somehow made it to one of the best agents in Rochester. So it's funny. Everybody's got a different approach, and then there's the more direct approach where you are asking for the business. So I'm always curious how they're spending that lead gen time. Is it really trying to like ask for business, or is it out there just being a good human and making connections?
Yeah, that's reassuring to hear, Mary. Yeah.
So it's reassuring in some ways, but then it makes me like not ask because I don't want to ask either. So I'm like,
right.
And that may or may not be true, right?
Yeah.
There probably are some times where you need to remind them, like, people don't. They think of you as much as we think they're thinking of you, right? And so if you don't ask sometimes, you don't get. But so it's interesting. Everybody's got a different approach to that.
Right.
Well, and I took a class yesterday, and it was like disrupting the market, or, like with lead generating and stuff like that. And basically they said, like, there's the trust triangle. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but basically the anatomy of a script is REO, and that is relationships, events, and objectives. So like those are the fundamentals in the trust triangle. So basically what they said was you take the relationships and the contacts, And so basically in that triangle, you're working on getting them from the stranger standpoint to friend standpoint, and then friends to basically become referral sources. So in a sense, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and probably didn't even know that that was, what they're teaching people. So
Yeah. Well, when it's broken down that way, it feels supernatural to me. Like it feels authentic.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So I saw Rita, she unmuted herself. I think she had a question. I'm not sure. And then Mary kind of piped in. So Rita, did you have something, honey?
Yes. So I have a ton of buyers, and some have pre-qual letters, some don't, some are working on it. At what point do you have the conversation? So I still don't have like a pre-meeting with a buyer. My meetings are still at that first house for a new buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And I do I use the COVID excuse of saying, well, we can't really go into houses. They only want serious buyers. So the only way to identify a serious buyer is if you have a pre-qual letter, blah, blah, blah. And then, so some people get mad and say, so you're not showing me a house? I said, no, we could do this simultaneously. While you're working on getting a pre-qual letter, I'll start showing you houses, looking forward to meeting you, blah, blah, blah. How are you guys handling the conversation of, because I really, I have a lot of buyers. There's not a lot of houses on the market. I feel like I'm going all over the world and I still can't get a house for all my buyers. Pretty soon I'm going to have them move in with me. I'm like so close to them because you know what I mean? I've been working with them long.
I do.
And I just, but some people get like almost offended. Like I'm asking them for their personal information and I'm not.
Yeah. So I've had some pushback before. I haven't really run into someone that is like going to refuse. They're more skeptical. Like, why do I need this first? Like, I want to see if the house is right for me first. And I often just blame the listing agent. Oh, the listing agent is only letting pre-qualified buyers in. They could start digging and realize that's not the case. But also, I think that most listing agents do want just pre-qualified buyers coming through, especially during COVID. And I also reassure them, like, you can reach out to banks and just have a preliminary conversation. They're not going to pull your credit and all of that until you give them the okay to. Like, you don't have to commit to this bank or anything. So that's one of the things I've found is people are like, they don't want that credit inquiry or they're not that sure yet. So how I guess, are they going to be held to this phone call? And once you tell them, like, no, you can shop around, you can call and kind of just pick their brains, you'll get a better idea of where you should be at. But I haven't had anyone really refuse. And I very rarely have had my first meeting be at a house, very, very rarely. I've always at least had a phone conversation first, if not met with them for coffee or at the office and, gotten their ID or some sort of pre-qual so that I know who they are, who they say they are. So I don't know if that's great advice because I would say I almost always refuse to show a house unless I have a pre-qual.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
From Jennifer, how do you know they can afford the house they're looking at without the letter? Tell them you'd rather show them houses they're comfortable with financially. Last thing you want to do is show them a house they fall in love with they can't afford.
Yeah. And I reiterate, like, the market is so crazy that if you fall in love with this house, by the time you get a pre-qual, if it takes a day or two, like, it could be gone. So bringing that up to kind of helps them because sometimes they're just not aware. We live in this every day. So it's like clear to us, you need a pre-qualification letter. What are you doing? But to someone else that bought a house 10 years ago, maybe they think it's 10 years ago still.
Right. Truth.
One thing that I had happen last week, I had somebody call to see a house and they weren't pre-qualified. They said they were pre-qualified 2 years ago. And I'm just like, okay, and he kept pushing back on me. And I explained the COVID. I explained, agents want to make sure just qualified buyers are going through. And finally I said, because he kept pushing back, I said, listen, with the way we are today, I cannot physically meet somebody that I don't know. it's a safety issue for you and it's a safety issue for me. And professionally, this is how, we do business.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? It's Saturday. I can get you pre-qualified today. Otherwise, you can wait till Monday and talk to your bank. I can't guarantee the house will still be available, but this is just how I do business.
Right.
And I'm not afraid to say that, you know what I mean? But I do remember being a young agent, 15 years ago, you would meet anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I think as a business, you explain the obvious, like Taylor and Jen were talking about. But I think you also, like Taylor said, if you bought something 10 years ago, we're in a different world. You know what I mean? COVID, safety, whatever, and we shouldn't be running our tails off for people that don't step up for us to run our tails off for. So
Right.
I think we got to have the confidence to just stand our ground.
Right. I agree. And, doesn't that speak volumes too, Laura, if somebody is not willing to do their part with
Right.
regards to getting pre-qualified and things like that, and furthermore, don't understand where you're coming with regards to safety, then they're probably not somebody you want to work with anyway.
No,
Right.
I didn't even follow up with them. I was like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't just give me enough to go, oh yeah, give me a reference to a bank, or here's the bank that I'm going to be calling. Nothing. So I was like, you know what? He doesn't get it. I don't want to distract from all of these other people over here. You kind of know, where to put your energy once you do this long enough. You know what I mean? I mean, you can beat the, I've heard when they would say, for every lead, you contact them 10 times before you stop contacting them. That may work for some people. I don't do it that way. So, it really goes back to a comfort level. I think what works for you. Even like Taylor's saying, I just come from the human side of lead generating rather than a sales side, and everybody's got to figure out where they work best.
That's another good question. Taylor, where do you fall on buyer's agency agreements, being a buyer's agent? Do you require them?
I get them all the time. I usually phrase it because I do sometimes find it weird, like here's the agency agreement or the agency disclosure. It's not a contract, but here's this one. This is a contract. So sometimes I will say, like, if you want to read this over, I can always get it back from you signed if you guys want to talk about it together, if it's a family. And almost always they'll sign it right there, but often if they don't, they take it, and then I just do like a DocuSign just to have it. I did that just because I had one person end up buying with someone else, and like I was hurt enough about that I was like, that's never happening again.
You get burned just once, right?
Right. And I honestly think it didn't come from a place of like malice with the client. I think that they went to an open house and it was like a dual agent situation. It's like, what are you going to do?
Right.
And I didn't have anything to fight it. So, now I look at it as protecting myself, and I get them whenever I know someone's like pre-qualified and serious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But to follow up on that, even though you have that buyer agency agreement, if they had gone to that same, what are the laws around if they had gone to that open house and they decided to work with that agent? I mean, what are you going to do? Say, no, you can't work with that agent. You still have to work with me? Or what does that agent, once that agent finds out that you had already, that buyer has signed a document with you, what would the language look like for that agent to tell that buyer?
That's a great question, Rita. I'm going to give it to one of these more experienced folks here. I just learned this habit from being burned, and then I went to 2 buyers series courses, and in both of them, despite who taught them, they stressed how important this was to protect me and to protect my client. And I was like, why would I not do this? But I don't know what like our recourse would be if someone actually did this and had a written agreement. Does anyone?
Like where you had to actually like try and fight for your right to commission after someone decided to not use you during that?
Especially if you have a buyer's agency agreement.
Yeah.
I know that I don't know what would exactly happen or how it would go down, but
Because
Yeah.
I do have a buyer agency agreement, and then he texted me. Unfortunately, I was like so swamped, I couldn't get the houses right away. So he ended up, the reason I found out was because the mortgage broker called and said, hey, he's using another agent. And so I said, well, I have a buyer's agency agreement. He goes, well, that's between you, the agent, and, and the buyer. And I haven't really done anything about it. I kind of want to do something about it just to learn the process, to say, hey, agent, I have a buyer agreement. Now what?
So are we talking buyer agency disclosure, or are we talking a buyer contract?
Contract.
Contract, because they're two different things.
No, the contract. Sorry, the contract where it says, he's going to work with me. I think
the buyer agents
until November or
Yeah.
something like that.
Maybe we should have a class on it because I've got questions too.
Okay.
I've never used a exclusive buyer contract. My father's just like, well, if they don't want to work with us, they don't want to work with us. But I think that today we really need to.
So I think in the verbiage of the buyer contract, it says that the buyer then is owed to pay you the commission because you have a signed agreement, so long as they purchased within that time.
3%.
That's what I was under the impression of too. I feel like if it happened to me, I would probably reach out to the TL or Chuck and say SOS, like, what are my options here?
Yeah, I bet Chuck would fight on that behalf,
So the buyer would owe you 3%.
Yes, or it would be proof that, the commission should go to you because you had an agency agreement signed. So whether or not it comes from, the other agent or the buyer, I would think that it would come from the buyer. I'd have to pull out the form and look at it. But, since that agreement is between you and the buyer, I would assume that the buyer would be responsible for paying you your commission.
Yeah.
We should probably have a class on that because I would definitely sit in on that.
Okay, I just I made a note of that as something to discuss. So perhaps
That's
even leave an
important. I'm
office
glad that
meeting.
Taylor uses it all the time.
What was that?
I said I'm glad that Taylor uses it all the time. And we should have been using it years ago, but we never really got into it.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
I feel like we should because there's no loyalty in this business anymore. There
Yeah.
used to be loyalty. You used to build loyalty up, and then that's what I loved about it. But now it's like, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, we have an office meeting coming up on Tuesday of next week. So perhaps that's something I can even get together and we can discuss that at the office meeting as a point. So, and if not there, then make it a class if we need to dive deeper. So, thank you for that, guys.
Yes.
So, all righty. Anybody have anything else? No. Thank you so much, you guys, for taking the time to join us this
Talking with everyone.
I appreciate talking with you. I find each of these sessions helpful, actually. Like it's intriguing to me to figure out where people have come, how they got where they are, and where they want to go. I mean, and everybody's story is different. So thank you so much for taking your
that's
time.
why
I
I come on
appreciate it.
these.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
All right, thanks, guys. Taylor. Bye.
Bye-bye.